Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Grid Live Encore. We are coming to you live from the West Coast. I'm Ben Schneider. Back home in Tennessee is Brandon Crosslin. Brandon, how are you doing?
Hey, Ben, it's nice to hear you out in California this evening. And of course, sitting here in Middle Tennessee. But hey, it's pretty cool. You got some friends out there, connections, and also being out there at Portland for us. And also going to get some things to work together for Sonoma. Really excited for you as well.
Yeah, it was great getting to cover the Portland race weekend with Joe and the Grid Network. And hopefully we'll be able to do the same with Brock Beard and NASCAR. And regardless, we'll be at the Sonoma track over the next few days. I want to thank my friend Ethan Smith for putting me up for a few days here and saving a lot of money on hotels this way. So everything's
Thanks, Ethan.
Yeah, everything's working out very nicely here. Spare a thought for him as well. His camera kind of got water damaged in all the rain in Portland, so he's actually trying to figure out that situation right now. So hopefully we'll get everything sorted out here, and we'll have a good weekend here coming up at Sonoma as well. But first, we have some racing to recap here, and we'll start with a very brief recap of the Indy Lights race. Not too much to talk about here. Linus Lundqvist absolutely dominated the races at Belle Isle, winning both parts of a doubleheader and extending his championship lead to 84 points now over the next closest driver, Benjamin Peterson. We talked extensively about Lundqvist's success this season. It's clear now that he's the clear championship favorite, setting up to be kind of a runaway here. I know we're not quite at the halfway point of the season. We have one race left to go, but it's going to be very difficult for anybody to catch him at this point. But one thing that we should also mention is that this was the final Detroit Grand Prix weekend to be held on the street circuit at Belle Isle Park. Of course, next year he moves to downtown Detroit and a new layout there. So, Brandon, two-part question here real quick. What do you make of Lundqvist's dominance so far this season? And are you disappointed to see the Belle Isle Circuit go?
Well, of course, I have more to say about the Detroit Grand Prix circuit being moved than Linus Lundqvist, but Linus definitely a contender for that Road to Indy scholarship, making his way into IndyCar. And very impressive young talent in the Indy Lights category. But the Belle Isle circuit, am I disappointed to see it go? It's kind of over the river from main inland Detroit, and it's going to be a lot of history lost by leaving Belle Isle. But there's also great gains to be had, though. I think they've I don't really know in depth the history behind it, but it seems that they've had Belle Isle as a way to be away from Detroit when Detroit wasn't as glamorous of a place to, certainly during the recession when it wasn't as glamorous of a place to have your race located at. But now that things are picking up for the Motor City, they're starting to make these steps to get back into downtown. And I've seen the street circuit layout for Detroit a few times, and honestly, before this weekend, when they announced it again, I forgot that it was a news story. It broke out already in the past, but I just forgot that I had heard about it. But it looks like a well put together street circuit, and hopefully GM and everyone on downtown Detroit will benefit from this new course, and also going back to some older history as well, going back to Detroit where it belongs.
Real quick, a comment here from A Day in My Life. Does Lundqvist have a path with a team currently like Rahal or Andretti? So currently he competes for HMD Motorsports and Indy Lights, which is associated with Dale Coyne's team. So it's better than nothing, but it isn't with like a Penske or Ganassi or a top level team like that. With no offense to Dale Coyne, of course, that team does a lot with the minimal resources that they have compared to those teams. So hopefully he's got a plan set for at least the 500 next year and hopefully the full schedule. I mean, he certainly... I don't know how much more he could be doing to prove that he belongs in the IndyCar series in 2023. But
maybe he can go through Voigt or Ed Carpenter.
That's true.
Those are some good entry levels.
There should be some teams that he can work with there. And, of course, David Malukas, a lot of people thought he should have been the Indy 500 Rookie of the Year this year, but he's got a ride set up with Dale Coyne at this point. So maybe Lundqvist is going to be able to do the same here. But getting back to Belle Isle, I am sad to see it go, and I'm a little hesitant because, obviously we're going to have to wait and see how the circuit actually races. But, it looks to me like it's mostly just right-handers. I think there's one hairpin, but it's a lot of 90-degree corners. So, I don't know in theory if that's going to not have too much of an effect, if there will still be some passing zones here. But, I have a feeling that it could lead to, a bit more of a bland race. But obviously, it's a wait and see approach. I don't want to criticize the product before we even get to see it on track next year. But, I worry, people might consider me a purist. You know, I am very big on tradition in this sport, and you know, there's a lot of traditions, a lot of history that comes with racing at Belle Isle. So I am kind of sad to see that go. I'm not opposed to trying to venture out into a bigger and better market in the Detroit area, but I do have some reservations about this course. But again, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, hopefully they can find a way to bring a fountain. If there's already a fountain in downtown that we can jump in, that's probably one of the biggest traditions that's going to be lost by leaving Belle Isle.
Yeah, I remember them making a big point of that all broadcast long. Of course, Ryan Hunter-Reay kind of jump-started that tradition a few years ago when he won, and every winner's done it ever since. And I have to say, you know, it was cool seeing Will Power's brother Damian back in the States, and him getting a chance to take a little bit of a dip there in the fountain as well. So great for Power and you know, the Penske team. I know they had a rough Indy 500, and Power in particular has had a very strong season outside of the 500, finally breaking through to get that win. And Alexander Rossi as well, who just announced his new deal with McLaren. I don't know if that maybe took some weight off his shoulders, but I think one more lap, it would have been very interesting. I think it would have been very close coming to the finish there. Of course, Rossi had the advantage on the primary black tires while Power was trying to finish the race on the alternate reds. And, you know, the gap just kept closing and closing. I think Rossi came up about one lap short there. But, you know, great race in Detroit all around. And Lundqvist, of course, I think is just, you know, fantastic in proving that he belongs in the IndyCar Series next year. Hopefully there's going to be a spot there available for him. Now let's shift gears over to Portland, and it was AJ Allmendinger taking the win. Probably not a surprise there. I see we've got Joe Samaniego here in the chat. Hi, Joe. Thanks again for everything you did for Grid this weekend. Back to the Portland race, Allmendinger taking the win. Probably not a surprise, but it was a bit of a surprise based on where he was on lap one. The team qualified in 10th, but wasn't happy with the race car at all. They made several changes, enough to the point where they had to go to the back of the pack to start the race. And then on the pace laps, Allmendinger kind of got caught off guard, ended up going off track. He had to come into the pits right away to clean off the grill. Ended up going a lap down to Ty Gibbs by the end of the stage, but was in the free pass position and was able to work his way back up through the field, eventually passing Myatt Schneider for the lead and in turn going on to take the win. So Brandon, we know he's always a threat on the road courses, but just how impressed were you with Allmendinger's comeback this race weekend?
I want to say I think I called this on the beginning of the schedule that AJ Allmendinger would take Portland. May have to go back and fact check that, but I think I called that one. Very impressed by the Dinger, getting another road course win at Portland, a place he's familiar with back from his kart days. But I mean, stock cars are a different deal, and this was just the most miserable of conditions at Portland. And there was not one car on the grid that didn't have some sort of damage to deal with. And AJ Allmendinger may have had the cleanest machine and still had his share of spins, as well as the wet conditions were confusing teams whether to stay on the wets or to go back onto the slicks. But the slicks going back too early proved a problem because it just started creating moisture again, and it was just a mess. And AJ Allmendinger able to get out of it and got the win before he got on the plane to go to St. Louis, and had a pretty good finish with St. Louis as well at the first Cup race at Gateway. But besides the point, AJ Allmendinger, wonderful comeback at Portland, and he's still one of my top shot contenders for that Xfinity title.
Yeah, I completely agree with Amber there. Absolutely. He drove the wheels off that car to get back to the front,
Yes,
and then drove the wheels off the car at Gateway as well. You know, we were sitting there in the press conference room as he talked to the media after he won the race, and he was talking about how it's a completely different mindset. Obviously, the goal that day in Portland was to win the race. Going to Gateway, a track he'd never been to before, with minimal simulation time, if any, you know, to get a top 20 there would probably have been a good day for him. That's what his mindset was at, you know, the day before he hopped on the plane to go to Gateway, and then he goes out and gets a top 10. So certainly a very good weekend for the entire colleague team. And one other thing that they brought up on Twitter this afternoon that I saw, if you combine all the National Touring Series, Allmendinger now has 10 road course wins. He's the all-time winningest road course driver in the history of NASCAR across all the top three series. Jeff Gordon has 9 Cup Series wins on the road courses. So He is adapted into quite the road course ringer. I don't know if we can call him a true ringer because he is full-time in the Xfinity Series, but always a threat when you visit a road course.
It just goes with the last name. That's how we're calling him.
Yeah, for sure. And Damon Life also bringing up Ty Gibbs missed out on a win, spun by a lap car. And then Creed, yeah, there was a bit of a feud going on between Gibbs and Gragson You know, I don't want to get too far into that because I want to keep the show a little bit shorter tonight. But, you know, that's we talked about Gragson and Jeb Burton going at it last week in Charlotte. And now, you know, he wasn't too happy with Ty Gibbs, and I think vice versa. And also, you know, very weird situation there. What happened with Gibbs getting spun out because he was on another planet the first stage, just completely driving away from everybody. And then there was some miscommunication. Jesse Awuji, I think, was trying to unlap himself and ended up spinning him out when he was already a few laps down. So an unfortunate situation there. I don't know if that kind of shook up Gibbs's race. I know he didn't get too much damage from that, but sometimes, you know, it can be a mental thing as well. If you get spun out, you're kind of thrown off your rhythm. And that was kind of when the entire race was thrown off its rhythm there. You know, I remember sitting there during stage 3 thinking, are we going to get a single green flag lap here? Because there were so many incidents and everything. And, you know, we'll talk about the ARCA race in a second here, but I think ARCA probably made the right call. They skipped the festival corners and the chicane on the starts and the restarts. I think, you know, given the weather conditions, I like to see drivers try to adapt to the track, but I think that was a situation there where they probably made a good call there, because I think it probably would have been a similar situation. Probably would have just been winding them up every time. So one other point that we want to bring up as well in regards to Xfinity, this was the only standalone race this season, which is kind of unusual. Usually we have 2 or 3 at least. So several drivers were asked during the press conferences if they wanted to see more standalone races on the schedule, and they seem open to the idea, but there are some other drivers and I think specifically team members and personnel as well that maybe have better access to the finances of traveling out to the West Coast, for Portland in particular. You know, it was kind of frustrating, you know, when you think of the race purses and trying to make money back on the race weekend. I don't know if there's a single team that didn't take a loss with making this trip out. So, Brandon, I want to ask you, do you think Xfinity should have more standalone races? Or, you know, in the current economy that we're in, you've got to factor in gas prices as well, traveling to the track, bringing the haulers out there. Is it maybe not the best time to be doing that right now?
Yeah, once upon a time, Ben, you know as well as I do, we went to Mexico with the Busch Series. We went to, to Canada, Canadian tracks.
Gilles Villeneuve,
Gilles Villeneuve, yeah. Can never say it right, but anyway, we've done that before in the past, and maybe in the past economy, pre-recession, it made sense. I mean, we can't still be talking about the recession, but when we were growing up, it made more sense that sure, we were going to fill out the whole stadium or fill out a whole facility if we have a Busch standalone event or Xfinity standalone event. I think I have some bias towards it because some of my first events experiencing NASCAR were Busch standalone events or Truck Series standalone events at Nashville. And so maybe I have some bias there, but I think it's still gas prices are going to always change, I think. And but for right now, that may not be a good option, but I think it's something we shouldn't rule out completely or just ignore forever. I think it could come back, and possibly I think it's good to have things that you do away from the Cup Series to show that, yes, the Xfinity Series is a different animal.
Yeah, I think there was even some comparisons that some fans were making on Twitter to the Montreal races that we used to do, and that's certainly a track that I miss. I know we still have it, obviously, in Formula One, but you know, the Busch Series and later Nationwide Series cars always put on a good show there. And you know, I got to think that it would be nice, in theory, for the Xfinity cars to have some more of those events, particularly a road course like this. But you know, Brandon, you mentioned Nashville. Nashville, of course, is a lot closer to Charlotte, where most of the teams are based. You know, to go all the way out to Portland, it might have been better if they could have found a way to schedule it to the point where, you know, it was part of a West Coast swing here. Like, I wonder if the Xfinity teams are wishing that they were going to Sonoma, you know, to get a race out of the way, you know, while they're out on the West Coast rather than having to go out and back. You know, I think part of what NASCAR's tried to do with marketing the West Coast swing is try to minimize the amount of times teams have to travel back and forth. But, you know, like you said, I think, you know, gas prices are always kind of going to be up and down. I know they're trending up right now, and it seems like there's no end in sight, but eventually something's going to happen to bring them back down a little bit, and hopefully we can get that resolved. Of course, that's something that NASCAR teams don't have any control over, but I don't know that long-term wise we should let that get in the way too much of our decision-making when it comes to the schedules here. Let's see, we've got a bit of an active chat room, so we'll go through some of these quickly here. Amber says it was an exciting race. Was the race a sellout? I believe it was announced as a sellout. I know Joe's got some connections. He's waiting for a true answer on that and confirmation just to make sure. But I can tell you from being of a track firsthand, it was certainly packed, especially considering there was no cup race there. I think, the stock car fans have just been waiting for a national touring race for 22 years now. So they were certainly eager, even with the elements and the rain, to show up. And it was great to see so many race fans out there. Day of Life says, had they not had the different race format, would AJ still win the race? I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to there when you talk about race format. Are you talking about the free pass would let him get back on the lead lap, or what? I'm not too sure there. Of course, like we said, AJ's always a threat on the road courses, but not exactly sure what that question's referring to there. Maybe we can get some clarification. Joe says, I miss NASCAR Xfinity in Montreal, Hickory, and South Boston. Yeah, and throw Myrtle Beach there as well. RIP to that track. That's kind of unfortunate, but I think it would be nice. Short tracks and road courses in particular, to get some standalone Xfinity races there. Okay, Day of Life says, with no live pit stops. I think that did play a little bit of a factor. Obviously, it was, and obviously the weather. Of course, teams trying to decide to go on slicks or keep the rain tires, and then going back and forth there as the weather went in and out during the last stage. It's hard to say, but I think AJ's done this before. He's been shuffled to the back and driven up and gotten back to a top 10, back to a top 5, and on this particular instance, even back to the win. So always a threat on the road courses, and I'm not sure, but that would have that certainly wouldn't have changed if no matter what the race format was. And Joe, of course, I'm right there with you. I loved Myrtle Beach as well. Sad that it's gone, and unfortunately, that track is gone entirely. Recommend Lost Speedways on Peacock if you got that. Dale Jr. did a nice feature on that right before the track went away there. But it would be nice, I think, to see some more standalones. Give a little bit more spotlight to the Xfinity and Truck Series. So let's keep going with the Portland race weekend here. And Portland fans might remember last year, Jake Drew thought he got screwed out of a win after he kind of cut the second corner on the last lap, got relegated down to 10th place. But he took some redemption this weekend and won the race at Portland despite all the elements and everything. And he extended his points lead as well over his teammate, Tanner Reef. Now, it was obviously a very wet race weekend, and the weather certainly impacted the ARCA race as well. With 18 laps to go, officials announced that the next time they took the start-finish line would mark 2 laps remaining, which effectively shortened the race by 15 laps, cutting it from 57 to 42. So, Brandon, this is the second time now that we've seen ARCA kind of make this audible call as we were approaching the end of the race and shortening it by a bit. We saw it at Talladega earlier this year as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that ARCA got the call right given the weather situation, or should they have let the race play out a little bit longer?
Yeah, if this happened in the Xfinity Series, I might be a little more annoyed. But looking at the ARCA Series and the youth and the inexperience that's in the series, with this rain as chaotic as it was, it might have been the right call here for ARCA to cut it a little bit short. But again, the drivers had no control over that, so it just the chips kind of fall where they may. But with Talladega, it was a completely different story, and it was we concluded that it was strictly because they were fighting to get off the air because of just what Fox was telling them, and that you and I both disagree agreed that was not really the right decision, looking at it from our point of view. But I think with the rain the way it is in Portland, that's just how it's going to happen, and I think ARCA was looking out for the inexperience of these drivers and their safety.
Yeah, I've got to say, it seemed like the right call at the time because the rain was certainly coming down. And, of course, we're out on the West Coast, so it was getting to be a little bit late. I don't think it was late enough to the point where, you had to worry about the sunlight visibility causing a problem. But obviously all the spray coming up from the standing water was a problem as well. Real quick, a comment from Amber. When we talk about Talladega, what the problem with Talladega was that the Xfinity race was on a set TV window, and ARCA was running a bit long. So Fox, I think, I don't know how much of a say that they had, obviously a pretty big say in terms of when ARCA needed to wrap up so that their pre-race show could go on the air. But what happened at Talladega was they said, we're going to restart with, I think it was 13 laps to go. And the next flag, caution or checkered, will mark the end of the race. So they made it 4 laps and then they wrecked. And that was the end there. So
manufacturing a winner, essentially.
Yeah, that I think left a lot more ambiguity as to when the race was going to end here. I think, I'll certainly take this over, what happened at Talladega. I think that there was, at least here you said, we're only going to run a few more laps and then call it. There was no ambiguity as to when that might happen, depending on what happened on the track. So, I think they probably, in hindsight, could have gone a little bit longer because I think, it was pretty clear the weather was easing a little bit and didn't pick back up until about another hour or so. So they might have even been able to go the full distance. But I think, there certainly weren't too many people complaining that the race was cut short because the conditions were certainly
right. And I'm sure they were waiting. They weren't wanting the other end of that spectrum of why did ARCA let this thing go? And now the whole field's wrecked or somebody's hurt,
Yeah.
It could have been the other way just as easily.
Yep, our own Adam Lemery is in the chat as well tonight. Hickory always produced plenty of action. Nashville Speedway USA as well, back in your neck of the woods there, Brandon. And Day in Life says, I enjoyed the Portland videos and maybe we'll attend the IndyCar race. We have family in Olympia. Well, I know Joe will be back for the IndyCar race later this year, so maybe he'll get a chance to see you there and certainly hope that you guys can make it out. Now, also of note, Bridget Burgess tied her best career finish in the ARCA Menards Series West with a 7th place run. Here's what she had to say about the race conditions after the event was over. All right, we're here with Bridget Burgess, who just finished 7th, ties her career best. I know you're up in the top 5 for much of the day as well. How would you assess how your race went?
I had a lot of fun out there. I'm definitely happy that it's my best run so far. It was a learning experience out there in the rain with a 3,400-pound car and 600 horsepower. But I had a lot of fun. I love the Portland International Raceway. Road courses are my favorite. So now I'm just ready for the next race in Sonoma.
Take us through how difficult it was to see out there, especially I noticed your car doesn't have a windshield wiper on it. Did that affect your visibility at all?
Yeah, it wasn't so much the fact of just wiping away the water, I guess. It was the fact that it was fogging up so bad inside the car, and then it just looked like a blur. So thankfully, my dad's my spotter, and he was helping me out a ton. Unfortunately, it's not like he could see the whole track, so for the other half of the track, I was on my own. But as for the French straight, he was helping me out a lot, and it was a big learning experience, though.
So one more thing I want to ask you. I know your mother, Sarah, almost made history at Irwindale. I know she's been wanting to get behind the wheel of one of these cars herself. Is there any update on when we might see her join you out on the racetrack?
Yeah, so unfortunately we are going to have to move it back. Instead of Irwindale, we're going to do the bull ring, which will be a ton of fun because that's Las Vegas. So it'll be a huge party as a race. And we'll have a lot of fun. My mom and I will be bumping away. So
thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And of course, we will have more on that story on Thursday's Women in Motorsports show with Joe and Daniel from Racers the Girls Behind the Helmet. And also, glad we got an answer on that. It looked like Bridget seems pretty confident that Sarah will be out on the track at the bull ring later this year. So we can certainly look forward to that. Of course, that moment almost happened earlier this year at Irwindale, so that'll be great to see. One more comment here from A Day in the Life real quick. Does Rain-X prevent a foggy windshield? I think some of the teams were using that because Bridget wasn't the only one that didn't have a wiper, and some of the teams that did have wipers, the wipers were kind of malfunctioning, weren't really doing much. So I'm sure that some of the teams were doing everything that they could. Obviously, there's only so much you can do when you're in a stock car and the conditions are that bad, but certainly made for something to talk about and a lot of interesting aspects going on there. But great run for Bridget, obviously, and for Jake to finally get that win. I think is going to be a big confidence boost for him as the championship continues. So we'll keep an eye on that. Now, moving on to the Truck Series at Gateway, another standalone event, or not a standalone event because the Cup Series was there this weekend, but historically has been standalone and different racetrack from where the Xfinity Series was this year. Was Corey Heim, who scored his second career win for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and it came in an overtime restart. Shortly before that, it looked like Derek Kraus might take his first win, and Kraus, of course, is a K&N West Series champion, now the ARCA Menards Series West. He enjoyed a rookie season in trucks in 2020, but only has one top 5 finish since the start of the 2021 season. He's a driver we haven't talked about too much on the show so far this year. So, Brandon, even though he didn't get the win, can Kraus take this strong run and use it as a momentum builder as the season continues?
I hope he can. That was a really nice, impressive move there at the end to get up there in the second position and almost had the thing taken over if it wasn't for Christian Eckes and company coming around his way. He's an impressive driver. Saw him through the ARCA, what was K&N, working his way up with a Napa sponsorship with Bill McAnally, and now he's here in the Truck Series and doing an impressive job there up front on this flatter Gateway surface. maybe that kind of track will be his strong suit moving forward in the Truck Series season. And hopefully we can see some more top 5 runs from Kraus that we can talk about here.
Yeah, of course, Derek was very impressive with Bill McIntyre Racing a few years ago and kind of helped restart their entire Truck Series team. And they've been full-time for the last couple of years now. And, it was great seeing him run up front. And I hope that he'll be able to close the deal on one of these races in the future. It's kind of been a rough year and a half for them. And I think even the ARCA West team has struggled a little bit since they moved from Toyota to Chevrolet. Anytime you have a manufacturer change like that, I think it kind of affects things and takes a little while to get your rhythm back. But hopefully this is a big confidence boost for them. Even though they didn't get the win or the second place that they probably would have gotten had we not had overtime, they can certainly hold their heads high and know that they had a good run. Now, after the race, all eyes were on Carson Hocevar, who we have been talking about a lot this season. Looks like he's just pounding on the door of his first win. Unfortunately, he appeared to sustain a leg injury in a crash on the final lap. He did put his window net down, but was noticeably in pain as it took a substantial amount of time for the safety team to arrive at his truck. Now, yesterday, he released a statement saying, "I want to thank all the fans for reaching out since the accident. Definitely feeling the love. I know you're all eager for an update, but I'm waiting on the specialist results on my ankle before sharing. I'm eager to get back behind the wheel, and will update you soon when I know more." So, Brandon, there was quite a bit of controversy on social media. A lot of fans weren't too happy with how long it took the safety team to get to Hocevar. Does NASCAR need to reevaluate the standards of its safety team and maybe bring in a traveling team like what IndyCar has? IndyCar's safety team, especially at IMS, certainly gets a lot of praise for how quickly they arrive on the scene. Do you think NASCAR needs something like that?
Yeah, in the same way that they've been flaunting this wrecker service that they're bringing all over the country. I forgot what their name is, but the guys with the tow trucks that are following NASCAR all around. In the same way, I think they need to get a hold of that AMR safety team, like IndyCar has been implementing, and have it where they tour around with the series. It'll definitely help the consistency of how their practices are played out. And also that was a hard lick, by the way, with Carson Hocevar. Terrible lick. And right there on the door, and didn't know he sustained injuries, but that leg and ankle, we certainly hope Carson's going to be okay, and that the proper healing will take place there at the hospital. But yeah, safety team could use some improvement, and with their reaction time, certainly. The window net should not be down for that long before somebody's able to get there.
Yeah, well, on that note, we have a comment from A Day in the Life. He put the window net down, which is the okay signal, looked like a miscommunication. I think in a lot of ways, maybe and again, obviously I wasn't in the truck, so I don't know exactly what was going through his mind, but, maybe he put the window net down to try to get out and then realized he couldn't. So, and then obviously, we just saw with Ryan Blaney of the All-Star race, once you take the window net down, you can't really put it back up. So, maybe there needs to be some better communication there. Maybe that, there needs to be another signal to the safety team if you're okay. Because the other thing was, once the safety team finally did get on the scene, it took them even more time to get over to Hocevar's truck. They went to a couple of the other trucks who were involved in the incident before they got over to Hocevar. So
didn't give him the priority.
Yeah. And, there's been some audio that came from his in-car there that, showed that he was pretty seriously in pain and was crying out for help. And even then it took them a while to get over to him. So, I think that this is something that needs to be looked at. I know that NASCAR prides itself on the safety innovations that they've made to the cars and the trucks over the years. I think if IndyCar can do it, with their traveling safety team, and the NASCAR can certainly at least try to look into something like that and prevent something like this from happening again. Because, I think we've kind of grown numb. Fortunately, these incidents are rare enough now that, we don't talk about them every single week, but it is still a possibility. And NASCAR, I think, needs to be prepared for that.
And they, as they do pride themselves in safety, I'm sure they will be quick to do something about this to make it quicker. I think it will be something that they will take seriously, as opposed to other things that we talk about.
Yeah, we can certainly hope so. All right. Well, Brandon, there's been a lot of great action this weekend. I want to give you an opportunity now. What is your one shining moment from everything that we saw this weekend?
I guess a Xfinity Series race at Portland would have to take the cake, and also you and Joe being able to be out there on behalf of Grid Network at Portland for the for the first time, really, for you to be there as well. I think that was a really cool move, and I'm going to give you my one shining moment this week. You know what? We do enough for the rest. Let's give you one shining moment.
I appreciate that very much, and looking forward to any future opportunities that we might have to do it again. I know, like we said, Joe's going to be back out there when the IndyCar Series comes, and of course, ARCA West has another race out there as well, so we can look forward to that. I guess my one shining moment has to go to AJ Allmendinger, not just for what he did in Portland, obviously, with that incredible comeback drive, but I've got to say, like he even said, in the press conference, top 20 was probably their goal. He went out and got a top 10, and the entire colleague team, I think I saw that all 5 of their cars across the 2 races this weekend were in the top 15. So a great weekend for a team that I think sometimes we forget is still relatively young. They've done a lot in just a short amount of time. And I think AJ Allmendinger has played no small role in helping build that team and get them off the ground. And they've certainly enjoyed a lot of success together. And, I think it's only going to continue as the season goes on. We've got several more road courses coming up. And, Allmendinger is going to be back behind the wheel of the Cup car this weekend at Sonoma. I know he's anxious to kind of earn one back after he had one. Looked like he maybe had one in the bag at Circuit of the Americas until Chastain got him back after he kind of moved him out of the way. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does this weekend. But as for last weekend, huge travel weekend for the entire colleague team, and they still came away with a fantastic result. So one final comment here from Amber. How weird was Portland? I got to say the weirdest part, and it's still kind of affecting me, is the time change because I'm on the East Coast. So, that was certainly I think it's easier to go west than it is to come back east. So, I think that might be the tougher change on my body, just getting used to, trying to go to bed and get up at different times, with the 3-hour time difference. But that was certainly probably the biggest challenge. So, sorry, Brent.
I'm sorry. Is it Portland that they say keep it weird, or is that Austin, Texas? I forget.
I don't think I'm familiar with that phrase. So
keep the city weird. I think it's keep Portland weird. I think that might be where you went to.
Maybe Joe can give us an answer on that. Obviously, I'm not from the area, so
I'm not either. I just seeing their tourism stuff. But AJ Allmendinger. My final thought is he's going to be dangerous at Sonoma. Look out!
Absolutely, and that's going to conclude our program for this evening. And be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network here on YouTube and follow us on all of our social media platforms as well: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you like what you saw tonight, consider joining our Patreon. As always, thank you, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have already done so. Take 5 minutes and consider investing in Grid Network to help keep us on the air throughout 2022. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you to Edward, Hunter from Formula E-Zone, Amber, and Zachary, who have already done so. Any amount will help us continue to grow this motorsports media outlet here at Grid Network. Finally, thank you as always to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GridNet will give you $5 in free stock from Public.com. There's a link available in the description. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now, on Wednesday, Kobe and Adam will host Grid Tonight. As always, Joe will be back on Thursday with Daniel for the Women in Motorsports show. And as always, of course, stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage all weekend long as the Cup Series and Truck Series for the first time in a while is back at Sonoma. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for tonight?
Yeah, I guess I jumped the gun there. I kind of gave my final thought, but Ethan, we'll get out of your room now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of things planned for this weekend as well, so stay tuned for that. All right, well, for Brandon Crosslin, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks as always for watching, and have a wonderful weekend.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on Public.com.